You're dumb, clumsy!
I've brokered hostile takeovers in boardrooms where grown men wept. I've watched CEOs sign away their legacies with trembling hands. After 17 years negotiating power, you develop instincts for when the room is about to detonate. Tonight, those instincts were screaming. The charity gala glittered like every other, crystal chandeliers refracting ambition, champagne masking desperation, designer gowns camouflaging knives. I stood near the silent auction display, pretending to examine a yacht package while actually monitoring the Joe Henderson merger representatives. Standard due diligence. Nothing unusual. Then the black woman walked past. She wore a borrowed dress. I could tell from the way the hem didn't quite break at her ankles, the slight pulling at the shoulders. Someone's +1, maybe. Said definitely not part of the usual circuit. She moved with careful precision, like someone who'd learned to take up exactly the right amount of space. Not too much, never too much. 3 men intercepted her near the champagne fountain. I recognized the type immediately. Finance district predators in bespoke suits, the kind who confused cruelty with charisma. One of them, tall, flushed with expensive bourbon, gestured too widely. His glass tilted. Champagne arced through the air in slow motion. It splashed across her shoes. Deliberate, obvious. Laughter erupted from the nearby clusters like breaking glass. A woman in diamonds leaned toward her companion, voice pitched just loud enough. I thought they checked invitations at the door. Phones appeared, angles adjusted, someone's flash popped. The black woman stood perfectly still. And I waited for the flinch, the apology reflex, the rapid blinking that precedes tears. I'd seen it 1,000 times, the moment someone realizes their entertainment. Instead, she smiled. Not the grimace of someone swallowing humiliation, not the frozen mask of shock, a smile that knew something. My pulse stuttered. Behind the 3 men, partially obscured by a marble column, stood another figure. Gray suit, hands clasped, posture like carved stone. Korean, maybe mid-30s. 2 associates flanked him, silent, not laughing. His eyes never left the woman's face. The temperature in the ballroom shifted. Or maybe that was just my survival instinct recognizing apex predators. The way he watched wasn't hungry, wasn't amused. It was the stillness of someone making calculations, the kind that end careers. I set my champagne down carefully. I was suddenly certain of 3 things. First, this wasn't random. Second, the men laughing had no idea what they'd just triggered. Third, I was about to witness the kind of destruction that doesn't require raised voices. Someone's world was about to end. I just didn't know whose. Before I even tell you what happened next, let me ask you this. Have you ever been dismissed by people who had no idea who you really were? If you have, you'll feel this story in your bones. And if you know what it's like to smile through disrespect while holding all the cards, hit subscribe. Not because it helps me, but because stories like this prove that silence can be the sharpest weapon. The tray was heavier than it should have been. I'd carried hundreds just like it. Stacked plates, sweating glasses. At the weight distributed just right across my palm. 3 years slinging food in this place taught me balance. Taught me to read a room. Taught me which tables to avoid and which smiles hid bad tips. I should have trusted my gut about booth 7. 4 guys in expensive suits, the kind that didn't match the vinyl seats and cracked laminate tables. They'd been loud since they walked in, that aggressive kind of loud that turns heads, that makes other customers shift in their seats. But loud customers tipped big sometimes, and I needed big. My phone buzzed in my apron pocket for the 3rd time. Debt collectors. Rent was due in 4 days, and my bank account had exactly $73 in it. $73 because Marcus, my boyfriend of 2 years, had cleaned out our joint account and vanished 3 weeks ago. No note, no explanation. He'd just gone, along with the $1,500 I'd been saving. So yeah, I needed booth 7 to tip big. Refills coming right up, I said, forcing brightness into my voice. The blonde one, expensive watch, too much cologne, smiled at me. Actually smiled. Take your time, we're not in a rush. See? Reasonable, normal. I turned toward the drink station, balancing the tray against my hip. Behind me, I heard one of them laugh. Not mean, just regular. The kind of sound that fills diners at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. I didn't see him rock the table. The tray slipped before I felt it slip. Glass shattered. Red soda exploded across the white tiles like someone had opened a vein. The sound cracked through the diner, sharp, final, the kind that makes everyone stop mid-bite. Laughter detonated faster than my heart could catch up. Ah, called it. The blonde one stood, hands raised like he'd won a bet. I told you they always mess up. My name badge twisted sideways as I froze. Air locked in my chest. The sticky sweetness crawled up my wrists, dripped onto my shoes, pooled around my knees. But I didn't move. Couldn't move. Because movement meant acknowledging this was real. Movement meant accepting I'd just given them exactly what they wanted. Hey, waitress. A woman at the next booth, designer purse, manicured nails, pointed at the spreading mess with one finger. Her voice dripped fake concern. You planning on licking that up, or should we call animal control? The men at booth 7 howled. One of them pulled out his phone. Flash. Another angle. Flash again. My manager Richard appeared from the kitchen, face already set in that expression. At the one that meant I was the problem. Not the customers. Never the customers. He didn't look at my face. He looked at the booth. At the stain. At the phone's recording. Clean it, he said flatly. And hurry. You're embarrassing us. Embarrassing us. Like the humiliation wasn't already burrowing under my skin, like dignity was something I'd dropped with the tray. I knelt. The floor was freezing through my thin stockings. Someone pushed a napkin toward me with the tip of their shoe, didn't even use their hand. The blonde one from booth 7 mimed scrubbing motions, exaggerated and slow, like teaching a child. Make sure you get it all, he called out. Wouldn't want you to slip. More laughter. More phones. I kept my eyes down, jaw locked so tight my teeth ached. This job was rent. This job was food. And this job was what you swallowed when life had already chewed you up and spit you out. I thought about Marcus's last text, the one I'd found after he'd already emptied the account. Sorry, I just can't do this anymore. Couldn't do what? Pay bills? Be a man? Exist with basic human decency? The woman in the designer purse leaned over her table. Careful, honey. Wouldn't want you making another mess. My hands shook as I scrubbed. Red soda mixed with something that might have been tears, but I wouldn't give them that. I wouldn't. Then I felt it. Someone watching. Not the phones, not the laughter. Something else. Something that made the hair on my neck stand up. I glanced toward the counter. A man stood there. Gray suit that didn't belong in a place that smelled like burnt coffee and old grease. Hands folded, posture perfect. Then 2 other men flanked him, silent, their eyes scanning the room like security. He wasn't laughing. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Not pity, not disgust. Something colder, something that felt like recognition. Our eyes met for half a second before I looked away. I finished cleaning. Stood. My knees cracked. Richard was already walking away, shaking his head. 2 hours later, he cornered me in the back hallway. The dinner rush had ended. My apron was still sticky, still stained. You're done for the night, Richard said. No eye contact. And don't expect to be on next week's schedule. My voice cracked despite every effort. For what? He shrugged. Customers complained. I laughed, couldn't help it. A short, broken sound that surprised even me. Complained about what? That I existed? That I was easy to humiliate? That they'd found someone who couldn't fight back? Get out, Richard said. I stripped off the apron, left it on the floor, walked out the back door into the night air that smelled like rain and exhaust. The door chimed behind me. I turned, already braced for more. Another insult. Another reminder that some people were born with power and some people were born to be stepped on. The man in the gray suit stood 3 feet away. Miss, he said. His voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of calm that made you listen. I waited, too tired to run, too numb to care. He held out a clean handkerchief, white, pressed, expensive. Your hands are bleeding. I looked down. I hadn't noticed. Broken glass, maybe. Or just how hard I'd been scrubbing. Why? I asked, suspicious, angry. Kindness at that moment felt like a trap. I don't enjoy watching cruelty go unanswered, he said simply. What they did was intentional. My laugh tasted bitter. Then you saw the whole show. I did. He paused. Something flickered behind his eyes. And I remember faces. He nodded once, sharp, final, and walked away. Disappeared into the parking lot darkness before I could decide whether to believe him or tell him to go to hell. I stood there holding his handkerchief, blood seeping into expensive fabric, wondering what kind of man watches someone get destroyed and does nothing. Wondering if I'd just met someone dangerous, or someone who'd just declared war. You know what the worst part is? It's not what they did. It's that I still showed up the next day, still smiled, still tried to make them proud of work they never respected. Then if you've ever kept going when everything in you screamed to quit, if you've ever swallowed your anger because you needed the paycheck more than you needed justice, don't just scroll past this. Subscribe. Not for me, for every person who's ever cleaned up a mess they didn't make while someone laughed. Because what happened next? They had no idea who was watching.
I counted to 30 before I followed her outside. 30 seconds to let my pulse settle, to let the rage cool into something useful, something surgical. Yoon stood at my shoulders, silent. He knew better than to speak when I was calculating. My other associate, Park, had already photographed every face at booth 7, discreetly, professionally. Backgrounds, I said quietly. All of them, financial records, employment history, traffic violations, everything. Yes, sir. Yoon's fingers moved across his phone screen. He'd have preliminary reports within the hour, full dossiers by morning. I watched through the diner window as the waitress, Jasmine, her name badge had read, stood in the parking lot staring at my handkerchief like it might explode. She hadn't cried, not once. I'd watched them destroy her in front of a room full of witnesses, and she hadn't given them tears, hadn't begged, hadn't apologized for their cruelty. That took a specific kind of strength, the kind my mother had. I was 7 years old the first time I watched strangers humiliate her in a Seoul marketplace. She was Black Korean, my father's wife, my world, the strongest person I knew. But that day, 3 women decided her existence was offensive, decided her son, half Black, half Korean, entirely theirs to mock, needed to learn his place. They spat at her feet, called her things I didn't have words for yet. My mother stood there, hand tight around mine, and smiled. Not because she was weak, because she knew something they didn't. My father owned half the district. By sunset, those women's husbands had lost their vendor licenses. Their stalls were empty within a week. No threats, no violence. Just consequences delivered cold. My father taught me that night, revenge served immediately is just violence. Revenge served cold becomes education. I was 34 now. I'd built an empire on that lesson. Kang Enterprises on paper, legitimate acquisitions, real estate, corporate investments. But beneath that, I controlled the flow of power in this city. I decided which businesses thrived, which politicians rose, which crimes got investigated, and which disappeared into convenient silence. People called me a shadow broker, a fixer. The Korean Mafia in whispered conversations they thought I couldn't hear, let them whisper. I preferred operating in the spaces between legality and darkness, the places where the law couldn't reach but justice still mattered. And tonight, say I'd watched 4 men deliberately destroy a woman who reminded me of my mother. That was a mistake. The blonde one, I said to Yoon. Name? Tyler Chen, hedge fund manager at Castellan Investments, Princeton graduate. Multiple complaints filed against him for workplace harassment, all settled quietly. Of course they were. The others? David Park, VP at a marketing firm, Justin Moore, real estate developer, Brandon Lee, corporate attorney. I memorized the names, faces, the exact timbre of their laughter. I want property records for all of them. I want to know who holds their leases, their mortgages, their loans. I want leverage maps by tomorrow. Consider it done. I walked to my car, a black Mercedes that cost more than this diner made in 6 months, slid into the back seat, parked, drove. Yoon sat beside me, already making calls. Yes, through the tinted window I watched Jasmine finally move. She got into a beat-up Honda Civic, sat there for 5 minutes with her forehead pressed against the steering wheel, then she drove away. "Follow her," I said. "Sir?" "Discreetly. I want to know where she lives, where she goes next, whether she has family, whether she's safe." Yoon didn't question it. He made another call. I leaned back against the leather seat, fingers steepled. Tyler Chen and his friends thought tonight was entertainment, thought humiliating a waitress was consequence-free fun. They were wrong. I didn't save people, I didn't play hero, but I corrected imbalances, and this was an imbalance that required correction. Jasmine had no idea what she'd survived tonight, but they would soon.
The video went viral on a Thursday. I was wiping down tables at Ruby's Diner, smaller, cheaper, quieter than the last place, when a customer's phone screen caught my eye. The thumbnail showed Booth 7. My Booth 7. My hands froze mid-wipe. "Can you believe this?" the customer said to her friend, turning up the volume. "These finance bros deliberately humiliated this poor waitress. Look, you can see them rock the table." I moved closer, pretending to refill her water. The video was shot from a different angle, not the phones from Booth 7. This came from somewhere near the kitchen entrance. High quality, steady. And it showed everything. Tyler Chen's hand on the table edge, pushing down just as I walked past. The deliberate tilt of the glass. David Park's smirk half a second before the crash. The woman at the next booth, Lauren Voss, but the caption identified her checking her own phone's camera angle before making the animal control comment. It was premeditated, calculated, cruel. The comment section was a war zone. "These people are disgusting." I found the diner's Yelp page. 1 star incoming. "Someone identify these men. They need to be fired." My chest felt too tight. Someone had filmed this. Someone had waited 2 weeks and then released it into the world like a grenade. That night, the diner made the local news. I watched from my apartment, studio, 400 square feet, walls so thin I could hear my neighbor's TV through the drywall. The anchor's voice was professionally concerned. "A local restaurant is facing backlash tonight after video surfaced showing staff and customers racially harassing a waitress." They blurred my face, used my first name only. But they didn't blur theirs. Tyler Chen's LinkedIn profile appeared on screen, then David Park's company website, Justin Moore's real estate firm. The news anchor rattled off their employers like a hit list. My phone buzzed. "Keisha." "Girl, are you seeing this?" I was seeing it. I was watching my humiliation get 2.3 million views. Watching strangers dissect the worst night of my life in comment sections. But something else was happening too. The diner's sponsors were pulling out. I watched it happen in real time on social media. First the local brewery that supplied their beer. Then the produce company. Then the cleaning service. Health inspectors showed up the next morning. Someone had filed complaints. Multiple complaints. Detailed, specific, impossible to ignore. And Richard, my former manager Richard, was fired on live television. But a reporter cornered him outside the diner. He looked gray, shaking. "Do you have anything to say about the video?" It's been taken out of context," Richard stammered. "We run a respectful establishment. You told Ms. Jasmine Porter she was embarrassing you while she cleaned up a mess customers deliberately caused. Is that respectful?" Richard's mouth opened, closed. He looked like a fish drowning in air. I should have felt triumph, victory, something. Instead, I felt numb. Because I didn't release that video. I didn't hire investigators or call news stations. I was working double shifts trying to keep my lights on. Someone else did this. Someone with resources, with reach, with the kind of power that moved pieces on a board I couldn't even see. The handkerchief was still in my apartment, washed, folded, sitting on my kitchen counter like evidence. I remember faces. That's what he'd said. I pulled out my phone, fingers shaking, and started searching. Man, gray suit, corporate Seoul Korean. Nothing useful. Too vague. Then I tried the diner's location, cross-referenced with corporate acquisitions and silent investor. One name appeared across multiple articles: Kang Min-jun, CEO of Kang Enterprises, silent partner in half the city's commercial real estate. The articles were careful, never quite accusing, always just shy of libel. But the implications were clear. He didn't just run businesses, he controlled them, influenced them, made things happen or made them disappear. I clicked on an image gallery. There he was. Gray suit, sharp features, posture like carved marble. The man from the diner. My hands went cold. The envelope arrived the next afternoon. No return address, thick cream paper. Inside was a single card and a check that made my knees weak. $15,000. The card read, "For lost wages and dignity." At the bottom, a signature I couldn't read and a company name I didn't recognize. But when I searched the business registration, it traced back through 3 shell corporations to one name, Kang Enterprises. I sat on my floor holding that check and laughed until I cried. Because kindness from a stranger was one thing, kindness from someone powerful enough to destroy a business in 2 weeks? That wasn't kindness. That was a declaration. I didn't cash the check immediately. Spent 3 days staring at it, arguing with myself. This was charity. This was pity. This was a man who thought money fixed humiliation. But it was also rent. And it was my car payment. It was the difference between surviving and drowning. On day 4, I deposited it. On day 5, I used $2,000 to enroll in night classes. Business management. Because if I was going to take money from a man who toppled empires, I was going to make sure I understood how empires worked. The acceptance letter came with a course catalog. I circled corporate strategy and leverage. Seemed appropriate. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The night classes are a good choice. K. My heart stopped. He was watching. Not just that night, not just the video. Now. I typed back with shaking hands. Who are you? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Someone who corrects imbalances. Will meet again soon. The dots vanished. I sat there staring at my phone, realizing I'd just been pulled into something I didn't understand, something that felt like protection and surveillance all at once. Something dangerous. She had no idea who was moving pieces behind the scenes, and honestly, that's the hardest part. Being so used to fighting alone that when someone finally fights for you, it feels like a trap. If you've ever been too tired to trust help when it came, if you've ever wondered what strings were attached to kindness, subscribe, because this community gets it. We understand that survival makes you suspicious, and what happens next? She's about to find out his help came with a price she never expected. Keisha wouldn't take no for an answer. You need a night out, she insisted, holding up a dress I couldn't afford and would never fit right. I clean houses for these people. Trust me, you blend in, eat free food, maybe network. You're taking business classes now, right? The charity gala, some foundation fundraiser for at-risk youth. The irony wasn't lost on me. I don't belong there, I said. Neither do half the people attending. Keisha shoved the dress into my hands. Navy blue, simple, someone's cast off from a closet bigger than my apartment. You've been working yourself dead for 3 weeks. Take one night, eat fancy food, pretend you're someone else. So I went. The hotel ballroom glittered like a jewelry box. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, women in gowns that cost more than my annual rent. As I felt the dress pull across my shoulders the moment I walked in. Too tight, too borrowed, too obvious. I grabbed champagne from a passing waiter and positioned myself near the silent auction table. Invisible. That was the goal. Eat, observe, leave. Then I heard them. Whole diner situation was ridiculous. Cancel culture at its finest. My spine went rigid. Two men in tuxedos, drinks in hand, laughing near the hors d'oeuvres table. I mean, the girl probably did mess up, the taller one said. But people act like it's a hate crime when you point it out. Exactly. Everyone's so sensitive now. My champagne glass felt slippery. I should walk away, should blend back into invisible, but my feet wouldn't move. Because these were the people who'd never been on their knees scrubbing soda off a floor while strangers recorded. These were the people who thought humiliation was a learning experience. I turned to leave and walked straight into Tyler Chen.
I saw her the moment she entered, navy dress, borrowed, posture careful. She moved like someone expecting to be ejected at any moment. Jasmine Porter, night classes at Metro Community College, working doubles at Ruby's Diner, still driving that dying Honda, still surviving on borrowed strength. I'd been tracking her for 3 weeks. Not personally, Yoon handled surveillance, but I received daily reports, where she went, whether she was safe, whether Tyler Chen or his associates had attempted contact. They hadn't, because they didn't know yet. Didn't know their world was being dismantled brick by brick. Didn't know the building that housed Castellan Investments had been quietly acquired by a subsidiary of mine. Didn't know their leases were up for review. Patience, my father always said, separates revenge from justice. Nay, I was being patient. Mr. Kang, one of the board members, approached, hand extended. I shook it, maintained the appropriate smile. These galas were theater, performance, necessary for maintaining my legitimate facade. But my attention was across the room, where Jasmine had just frozen, where Tyler Chen, drunk, confident, oblivious, had nearly spilled his drink on her.
He didn't recognize me. Tyler Chen stood 2 feet away, bourbon sloshing in his glass, and he didn't recognize my face. Why would he? I'd been scenery, a prop in his entertainment. Sorry, he slurred, not sorry at all. These events get so crowded. I should have walked away, should have disappeared. Instead, I heard myself say, "It's fine, accidents happen." His eyes focused on me for the first time. Traveling, assessing, dismissing. You here with someone? Not flirtatious. Transactional. Checking if I was worth his time. A friend. He took another drink, turned to his companion, a man I vaguely recognized from the video comments, someone who'd defended the Booth 7 crew online. You ever notice how these diversity initiatives bring in the strangest people? He said it like I wasn't standing there, like I was furniture with ears. My hands started shaking. The champagne glass felt like it might shatter.
I was moving before I made the conscious decision. Yoon materialized at my elbow. "Sir, stay here." I crossed the ballroom in 15 seconds. The crowd parted without realizing why. Power does that, creates space even when people don't consciously recognize it. Tyler's back was to me, still talking, still oblivious. Jasmine's eyes met mine over his shoulder. Recognition flashed. Then confusion, then something I couldn't quite read. I stopped directly behind Tyler Chen. "Tyler," I said quietly.
Tyler turned, annoyed, then went absolutely still. The man in the gray suit stood there. Same posture, same unreadable expression. But Tyler recognized him. "Mr. Kang?" Tyler's voice changed completely. Sober, nervous. "I didn't know you were attending tonight." Clearly. Min-jun's eyes flicked to me, then back to Tyler. "Walk with me." It wasn't a request. Tyler followed like a dog on a leash, leaving his companion standing there confused. I watched them disappear toward a private balcony, heart hammering. What the hell just happened? My phone buzzed. Unknown number. But I knew. Stay at the gala. I'll find you after. I stood there, champagne going warm in my hand, realizing I'd just watched a predator intercept prey, and I still didn't know which one I was supposed to be.
The balcony air was cold, sharp. I should have grabbed my coat. Kang Min-jun stood at the railing, looking out over the city like he owned it. Maybe he did. I didn't actually know the extent of his holdings. Nobody did. That was the point. I didn't mean to interrupt your evening, I started. Keep it light, professional. You didn't interrupt. His voice was perfectly calm. That was somehow worse than anger. You provided clarity. My stomach twisted. I'm not sure what you mean. The woman you just insulted. He turned to face me. Do you remember her? I glanced back through the glass doors. Navy dress, black, pretty enough. Should I? 3 weeks ago, a diner on 7th Street. You and your friends turned harassment into entertainment. The floor dropped out from under me. The waitress. Oh God, the waitress from the video. My mouth went dry. That wasn't what it looked like. It was just premeditated cruelty. Min-jun's expression didn't change. I watched it happen. I've also watched the video, from multiple angles. The ones you recorded, and the ones you didn't know existed. Panic clawed up my throat. Look, if this is about the PR blowback, I had nothing to do with, your firm is housed in the Castellan building, correct? The subject changed through me. Yes, why? I own the building now. Acquired it 2 weeks ago through a subsidiary. Your lease expires in 30 days. My heart stopped. You can't. I did. He pulled out his phone, turned the screen toward me. Emails, financial records, my trading history with specific transactions highlighted. Transactions that weren't entirely legal. My knees went weak. Oh, how did you... I know where you hide money, Tyler. I know which trades you front ran. I know about the insider information from your Princeton roommate at the SEC. I know things your own compliance department missed. Bile rose in my throat. What do you want? I want you to understand cause and effect. He pocketed his phone. You thought humiliating a service worker was entertainment. Free. Consequence-free fun. We were just messing around. You were establishing dominance over someone you perceived as powerless. His voice never rose, never wavered. But she wasn't powerless. She just hadn't met me yet. The city lights blurred. I was going to be sick. You have 2 options, Min-jun continued. Option 1, public apology. Resignation from Castellan. A voluntary cooperation with the SEC investigation I'm about to trigger. Investigation? You can't. Option 2, I release everything tomorrow. Your trades, your communications, video footage of you and your friends discussing how to mess with the help before you even entered that diner. My vision tunneled. You're bluffing. He smiled for the first time. It was terrifying. Am I? I thought about my apartment, my car, my reputation, my career, everything I'd built, everything he could take with a phone call. What do I have to do? My voice cracked. Tomorrow, you'll submit your resignation. You'll issue a public apology, genuine, specific, naming what you did. You'll cooperate with any investigations, and you'll never contact Jasmine Porter ever. And if I do this, the SEC investigation disappears. Yes, your trading history stays private. You get to rebuild somewhere else, smaller, humbler. I wanted to fight, wanted to argue, wanted to call a lawyer, but I knew power when I saw it, and I had none. Fine, I whispered. Min-jun nodded once. Good, now go home. Draft your resignation. I'll be reading it. He walked past me, back toward the gala, leaving me alone on the balcony. I gripped the railing, shaking, realizing I'd just been dismantled by a man who never raised his voice. The diner. The waitress. That stupid video. I'd thought I was untouchable. I was wrong.
I found a different balcony, quieter, away from the laughter and champagne and people who thought charity was writing checks instead of changing systems. The city stretched below like broken promises. Lights everywhere, but somehow still dark. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. East balcony, 3rd floor. I should have ignored it. Should have called Keisha and left. Instead, I walked. He was already there when I arrived, leaning against the railing, hands in his pockets, looking like he'd always belonged in spaces this expensive. "We keep meeting on balconies," I said. Kang Min-jun turned. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. "You came. You didn't give me much choice." I crossed my arms. That text felt like a summons. It was an invitation. From the man who's been tracking my enrollment in night classes? He didn't deny it. Didn't even look embarrassed. "You're angry," he observed. "I'm confused. You pay my rent. You destroy my enemies. You text me like we're friends. But we're not friends. I don't even know you." "No," he agreed. "You don't." The honesty startled me.
She was angrier than I'd anticipated. Good. Anger meant she hadn't been broken, hadn't been bought. "You remember me?" I said, not a question. "The diner, you gave me a handkerchief, said you remembered faces." Jasmine stepped closer. "But you did more than remember, you destroyed them." "Not destroyed, corrected. That's not an answer." She was right, it wasn't. I'd spent 3 weeks justifying this to myself, telling myself it was about justice, about balance, about teaching Tyler Chen and his friends that cruelty had consequences. But standing here, watching Jasmine look at me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve, I realized the truth was more complicated. "My mother was Black Korean," I heard myself say. "When I was 7, I watched 3 women humiliate her in a Seoul marketplace. They spit at her feet. Called her things I didn't have words for yet." Jasmine's expression shifted, softened slightly. "My father was powerful, connected. By sunset, those women's families had lost their vendor licenses, their livelihoods, everything." "Revenge," Jasmine said quietly. "Justice," I corrected. "Revenge is immediate, emotional. Justice takes time." "And what you did to Tyler, to Richard, that was justice." "That was them learning that some people aren't as powerless as they appear."
He said it like a fact, like the universe operated on his personal moral code. "You didn't save me," I said. "No." He met my eyes. "You saved yourself. I just removed obstacles." "By tracking me? By deciding what I needed without asking? Would you have accepted help if I'd asked?" The question landed like a punch. Because he was right. I wouldn't have. I'd spent my whole life refusing help because help always came with strings, with expectations, with men who thought buying you dinner meant owning your time. "What do you want from me?" I asked.
What did I want? I'd been asking myself that question for 3 weeks. At first it was simple: correct the imbalance, punish the guilty, move on. But then I'd read her course selections, watched her ask the right questions in class through surveillance footage Yoon compiled, seen her budget her $15,000 with the precision of someone who'd never had safety nets. She wasn't just surviving, she was building, and I wanted to watch her build without obstacles. "I'm acquiring properties," I said. "Restaurants, commercial real estate, hospitality. I need someone who understands what dignity costs, someone who won't forget where power comes from." Her eyes widened. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a position, director of operations. You'd oversee workplace standards, employee relations, vendor ethics. I'm in my 2nd week of community college. I was a waitress." "You're someone who understands how systems fail the people they're supposed to protect. That's worth more than a degree." She laughed, sharp, disbelieving. "You don't know me. I know you didn't cry when they humiliated you. I know you enrolled in business classes the same week you cashed my check. I know you're still driving a car that should have died 2 years ago because you're saving money for something bigger. You know facts. That's not the same as knowing someone. Fair."
He was offering me power, real power, the kind that came with budgets and decisions and the ability to say no, the kind I'd never had. If I do this, I said slowly, I do it my way. No shadows, no secrets, no surveillance. Something like respect crossed his face. Agreed. And the people who hurt me? They don't get to know I'm the reason they fell. Why not? Because I don't want them thinking about me at all. I want them forgotten, erased, irrelevant. He smiled, genuine this time. That's more ruthless than revenge. I learned from watching powerful people. I stepped closer. But I need to know one more thing. What? Why do you care? The question hung between us.
Because you remind me of my mother, because watching you survive reminded me why I built this empire, because somewhere between the diner and tonight, correcting an imbalance became something else. I didn't say any of that. Instead, because some debts can't be paid with money. Our eyes held. The city hummed below. Inside, the gala continued without us. Jasmine extended her hand. 6-month trial. I report to you, but I make my own decisions. I took her hand. Her grip was firm, steady. Deal. We shook. And in that moment, both of us knew this wasn't just business. This was the beginning of something neither of us could control. When someone sees you, really sees you, after years of being invisible, it's terrifying, because what if they look away? Or what if the power they're offering comes with chains you can't see yet? If you've ever been afraid to hope because disappointment hurt worse than loneliness, if you've ever taken a chance on someone who seemed too good to be real, subscribe. This channel is for people who understand that trust is the hardest thing to rebuild. And what comes next? She's about to learn that working for someone powerful means watching how they handle enemies. And his methods, they'll change everything she thought she knew about justice.
Tyler Chen's resignation hit Bloomberg at 9 a.m. I was sitting in my business strategy class when phones started buzzing. The professor paused mid-sentence, annoyed, until he saw what everyone was reading. Well, he said dryly, that's one way to illustrate corporate accountability. I pulled up the article on my laptop. Hedge fund manager resigns amid ethics investigation. Tyler's photo, professional headshot, confident smile, next to a statement that reeked of lawyer review. After careful consideration, I've decided to step down from my position at Castellan Investments to focus on personal growth and accountability. I deeply regret my actions at a local establishment 3 weeks ago, where I participated in unacceptable behavior toward service staff. The comments section was already vicious. Personal growth equals got caught. His LinkedIn is getting destroyed right now. Good. Actions have consequences. I closed the laptop, hands shaking. This was real. This was happening. 1 week later, Richard made the news again. Former manager arrested, embezzlement and health code violations. The mugshot showed him gray-faced, stunned. Apparently, the health inspector's random visit had uncovered financial irregularities. Missing funds, fake vendor invoices, schemes that had been running for years. Someone must have tipped them off, Keisha said when she called. Health inspectors don't just randomly audit payroll records. Someone. Right. I thought about Min-jun's calm voice on the balcony. Justice takes time. 2 weeks after Tyler's resignation, David Park, the marketing VP from Booth 7, lost a major client. Is sexual harassment allegations from 3 employees, suddenly well-funded by an anonymous legal group. Then Justin Moore, the real estate developer. City contracts revoked after a corruption investigation revealed bid rigging. One by one, the dominoes fell, and I watched it happen from my new office. Kang Enterprises occupied 4 floors of a downtown high-rise. My office was modest, 10th floor, window view, desk that didn't wobble. Min-jun's was on the 42nd floor, glass walls overlooking the city like a throne room. I'd been director of operations for 2 weeks, still learning the systems, still trying to understand how many properties he actually controlled. The number kept growing. But I was good at it. Turned out years of managing difficult customers and impossible schedules translated well to operations management. And I knew how to spot problems before they exploded, knew how to talk to employees who'd been ignored by corporate. I was reviewing vendor contracts when my assistant knocked. "Ms. Porter, there's something you should see." She handed me a tablet. Local news, live broadcast. Lauren Voss, the woman from the booth, the one who'd made the animal control comment, was being interviewed outside a courthouse. Filing suit against what she calls digital mob justice, the reporter was saying. Lauren stood there in designer sunglasses, lawyer at her elbow, looking like a victim. "I made a mistake," she said, voice trembling. "But the response has been disproportionate. My family has received death threats. My husband lost his job." I turned off the tablet. My hands were shaking again. But not from fear, from rage. She was playing victim, rewriting history, making this about her suffering instead of her cruelty. My phone buzzed. Min-jun. "Conference room B, now." I took the elevator up, mind racing. Min-jun stood at the window when I entered. Yoon was there too, tablet in hand. "You saw the interview," Min-jun said. "She's threatening to sue." "Let her." He turned. "I have something better." Yoon slid a folder across the table. Inside, photos of Lauren's husband with another woman. Financial records showing her charity foundation, the one she ran for at-risk youth, was embezzling donations. Emails discussing how to manipulate tax write-offs, enough to destroy her completely. I stared at the evidence, feeling sick. "This is too much," I whispered. Min-jun's expression didn't change. "Is it?" "She's terrible. But this..." I gestured at the folder. This is overkill. This is consequences." "No." I stood up. "This is revenge. And I don't want it." Silence filled the room. Min-jun studied me like I was a problem he hadn't anticipated. "What do you want?" he finally asked. I thought about it, really thought. "I want to meet her," I said. "Face to face. No lawyers, no press, just her and me." "Why?" "Because I want her to see what she tried to destroy, and I want to offer her something she never gave me." "Which is?" "A choice." Min-jun's eyes narrowed. Then slowly he smiled. "Yoon, arrange it." The meeting was set for Thursday afternoon. Neutral location, a conference room Min-jun rented in a building neither of us owned. I spent 3 days preparing, rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd say it, whether I'd be able to look Lauren Voss in the face without my hands shaking. "You don't have to do this," Min-jun said the night before. We were in his office, late. The city glowed below us like scattered diamonds. "Yes, I do." "Why?" "I can handle her. Make her disappear from the narrative entirely." "That's exactly why I need to do this myself." I turned from the window. "You've been fighting my battles for weeks, and I'm grateful. But if I let you destroy everyone who hurt me, I'm still powerless. Just protected instead of broken." He considered this. "You want agency. I want to define what justice looks like for me, not revenge. In not destruction, something else. And if she refuses, if she attacks you again, then you can release everything." I smiled without humor. "But let me try first."
She was right. I hated that she was right. For 3 weeks I'd been controlling the situation, moving pieces, orchestrating consequences, telling myself it was justice. But Jasmine was asking for something I'd never considered, the right to show mercy. That took more strength than revenge ever could. "What do you need from me?" I asked. Background on her marriage, her charity, enough ammunition that she knows I'm not powerless, but I use it, not you. I nodded to Yoon. He'd already prepared a condensed file. Just the critical information. Jasmine didn't need to see everything. The depth of surveillance would only make her question my methods further. She took the folder, studied it for 20 minutes in silence. "Her husband's been cheating for 2 years," she said finally. The charity embezzlement funded their lifestyle. Yes. And she has no idea you know. She suspects. That's why she's threatening lawsuits, trying to regain control of the narrative. Jasmine closed the folder. She's scared. She should be. No. Jasmine met my eyes. She should be educated. There's a difference.
Thursday arrived too fast. I wore my best suit, purchased with my first operations director paycheck. Navy blue, professional, armor. Min-jun insisted on attending, but promised to stay silent unless I needed him. Yoon positioned himself by the door. Security theater, but I didn't argue. Lauren Voss arrived 15 minutes late. She swept in wearing designer clothes and fresh anger. Her lawyer started to follow. Min-jun blocked him. "Just the principles," Min-jun said. "Not a request." The lawyer looked at Lauren. She nodded, irritated. The door closed. Lauren sat across from me, eyes traveling over my face, searching. Then recognition hit. Her skin went pale. "You," she whispered. "Me?" I kept my voice level. "You don't remember my name, do you?" She didn't answer. "Jasmine Porter." "Yeah, you suggested calling animal control while I cleaned soda off the floor. You recorded it, laughed, made sure I knew exactly what you thought of me." Lauren's hands gripped her purse. I was having a bad day. You shouldn't have dehumanized a stranger for entertainment," I interrupted. "But you did. And now you're threatening lawsuits because people saw what you did. The harassment has been—" "Don't." My voice came out harder than intended. "Don't pretend you're the victim here." Silence. Lauren's lawyer knocked on the glass. She waved him away. "What do you want?" she asked. Voice small. Nothing like the woman who'd mocked me. I slid the folder across the table. She opened it. Face draining of color with each page. Her husband. The affair. The charity embezzlement. Bank records. Emails. Photos. How did you— "That doesn't matter." I leaned forward. "What matters is what happens next. You have two choices."
I watched Jasmine negotiate like she'd been doing this her whole life. Calm, precise, no wasted words. She'd learned faster than I'd anticipated, absorbed the language of leverage like a native speaker. "Choice one," Jasmine continued. "You drop the lawsuit, issue a genuine apology, no lawyer script, no excuses, and you volunteer at the organization I'm building, 20 hours a week for 6 months. You'll learn what service actually means." Lauren's mouth opened, closed. "Choice two, I release everything to your husband, to the IRS, to every news outlet covering your lawsuit. You lose your marriage, your charity, and your reputation in one day." That's blackmail." "No." Jasmine's voice stayed level. "That's consequences, which is something you've never faced. Until now." Lauren looked at me. "Yeah, and you're okay with this?" "This isn't my negotiation," I said. "It's hers."
Lauren stared at the folder like it was a bomb. "I made a mistake," she said again. Quieter this time. "I was cruel. I'm sorry." "I don't believe you yet," I replied. "But I will. After 6 months of watching you show up. Do the work. Understand what it feels like to serve people who might dismiss you. And if I do this, the folder disappears? The folder stays sealed. Your marriage stays intact. Your charity gets audited and cleaned up, but you can rebuild it properly." She looked at me with something like disbelief. "Why are you giving me a chance?" I thought about that. Because Min-jun would have destroyed her completely, would have left nothing but ash. Because I'd learned that mercy wasn't weakness, it was choosing your own terms. Because breaking the cycle meant offering something I'd never received. Because you get to learn what I already know," I said. "That dignity isn't given, it's chosen. And you're going to choose it every day for 6 months." Lauren's hands shook as she closed the folder. "I accept." I slid a contract across the table, already prepared. Yoon's handwriting in the margins, legal, binding, specific. She signed. When she left, she looked smaller, quieter, ashamed. Min-jun waited until the door closed. "That was unexpected," he said. "Good unexpected or bad unexpected?" "Dangerous unexpected." He studied me. "You just taught her that mercy exists. That's more disruptive than revenge." "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation." He moved closer. "You're rewriting rules I've spent years enforcing." "Maybe your rules needed rewriting." The space between us felt electric, charged. "Maybe they did," he said quietly. His hand reached up, hesitated, then brushed my cheek. I didn't pull away. "What are we doing?" I whispered. "I don't know." His thumb traced my jaw. "But I don't want to stop." I kissed him. Or he kissed me. It didn't matter. It tasted like power and surrender all at once, like finding something you didn't know you'd been searching for. When we broke apart, the city still glowed below, but everything felt different. "This complicates things," I said. "Yes," he agreed. "It does. I still work for you. Technically, you work with me." His smile was slight, genuine. "But we can revisit the organizational chart." I laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in months, the weight on my chest felt lighter. Not gone, but manageable. And standing there with Min-jun, watching the city we were both learning to rebuild, I realized something. Justice didn't have to be cold. It could be warm, human, complicated. It could be ours. 3 months later, the diner reopened, not the old one. That building had been gutted, sold, turned into a boutique I'd never visit. This was something new. I stood in the center of the space, hardwood floors, exposed brick, tables built by local craftsmen, the smell of fresh paint and possibility. "Porter's," the sign outside read. Simple, clean, mine. Min-jun had offered to buy it outright. I'd refused. Instead, we'd structured it as a co-op. Employees were co-owners, profit sharing, living wages, zero tolerance policy posted on every wall. The staff I'd hired were people like me, people who'd been dismissed, overlooked, told they weren't worth investing in. I proved that wrong every single day. "You ready?" Keisha appeared from the kitchen, wearing an apron with manager embroidered on it. Her dream job, finally. "Are we ever ready?" I asked. "Girl, you've been ready since the day those men thought they could break you." The soft opening started at 6 p.m. Friends, family, media. Enough attention to matter, but not enough to overwhelm. Min-jun arrived at 6:15. Gray suit, same unreadable expression. But his eyes found mine immediately. We hadn't made anything official, hadn't defined what we were. But 3 months of late-night strategy sessions and stolen moments had blurred every professional line we'd tried to draw. He stayed in the background, observing, letting me have this moment. Tyler Chen showed up at 6:30. I almost didn't recognize him. He'd lost weight, wore a non-profit organization t-shirt, looked tired. Genuinely tired, not executive tired. "Ms. Porter," he said quietly. "I know I'm probably not welcome. But I wanted to say, you're working at Second Chance Youth Services now," I interrupted. "I saw the announcement." He looked surprised. "You've been following my work?" "I follow everyone who hurt me, to make sure they don't hurt anyone else." That landed. He flinched. "I'm sorry," Tyler said, and this time it sounded real. "For what I did, for who I was. I'm trying to be different." "Good." I didn't smile, didn't make it easy. "Keep trying, for the rest of your life." He nodded and left. Keisha appeared at my elbow. That took strength. No, strength was not calling Min-jun to have him removed. She laughed. "Speaking of Min-jun." I followed her gaze. He stood near the bar, talking to someone I didn't recognize at first. Then my heart stopped. Lauren Voss. She wore jeans and a Porter's staff t-shirt. Hair pulled back, no makeup. In no designer anything. She'd been volunteering for 3 months, showing up, doing the work, learning what humility actually required. Today was supposed to be her first shift as part of our community outreach program. I walked over. "Miss Porter?" Lauren's voice was different, quieter, respectful. "Thank you for this opportunity." "Don't thank me yet," I said. "You're going to be training new hires, teaching them customer service, which means you'll need to practice what you're teaching." "I understand." Min-jun's eyes met mine. He'd been against this, thought bringing Lauren into my business was too risky, but I'd insisted, because breaking cycles meant offering chances you'd never received. "One mistake," I told Lauren. "One moment of cruelty toward any staff member or customer, and you're done. Permanently." "Understood." She moved toward the kitchen. Keisha would supervise her tonight. Min-jun stepped closer. "Still think this was wise?" "No, but wisdom isn't always the point." "What is?" "Proving that people can change, if we let them." The opening went smoothly. Customers loved the food, loved the atmosphere, loved the story they'd read in the press. Formerly Humiliated Waitress opens co-op restaurant. They didn't know the full story, didn't know about Min-jun's shadow empire, didn't know about Tyler's forced resignation or Richard's arrest or the systematic destruction of everyone who'd hurt me. They just knew the redemption narrative. That was enough. At midnight, after the last customer left, I stood alone in the empty dining room, touching the tables, the bar, the spot where, in another building, as another life, I'd been on my knees scrubbing soda while strangers laughed. Footsteps behind me. "You did it," Min-jun said. "We did it." "No." He moved closer. "This is yours. I just removed obstacles." "You did more than that." I turned to face him. "You showed me what power looks like when it's used correctly. And you showed me what justice looks like when it's merciful." The space between us disappeared. This kiss was different from the first. Slower, certain, like we'd both stopped pretending this was temporary. When we broke apart, I asked the question I'd been avoiding. "What happens now?" "Now?" He smiled. "Now you run an empire, and I watch you rebuild everything they tried to destroy." "Just watch?" "Maybe participate occasionally, if you'll let me." I kissed him again. Answer enough. Outside, the Porter's sign glowed against the night sky. Inside, everything I'd built waited for morning, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what came next, because I'd learned the most important lesson. Justice didn't roar. It rebuilt. 6 months after Porter's opened, I stood on the rooftop of Kang Enterprises. The city stretched below, lights like scattered stars, traffic humming, life continuing in 1,000 directions. I came up here when I needed to think. When the weight of running 2 operations, Porter's and my position at Kang Enterprises, pressed too heavy. Tonight, I needed to remember how far I'd traveled. The diner was thriving. 30 employees, all co-owners. Keisha had just opened our second location. Lauren Voss had completed her 6-month commitment and asked to stay on. She ran our community outreach now, genuinely good at it. Tyler Chen visited sometimes, quiet, respectful, still trying to earn forgiveness he'd probably never fully receive. Richard was out of prison, working minimum wage, writing apology letters I never read. David Park and Justin Moore had rebuilt careers somewhere smaller, somewhere they'd never forget what arrogance cost. The dominoes had fallen exactly as Min-jun predicted, but I'd decided how they landed. "Thought I'd find you here." Min-jun emerged from the rooftop access door, carrying 2 glasses of wine. We'd been together for 4 months officially. The business journals called us a power couple. The gossip sites speculated about wedding dates. We ignored both. Couldn't sleep? He asked, handing me a glass. Thinking about the article. Business Weekly had featured us. How one waitress transformed workplace justice. They'd interviewed employees, tracked our model, suggested we were revolutionizing hospitality standards. They still didn't know the full story. Regrets? Min-jun asked. I considered that. No, but sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been there that night. You would have survived. You were already surviving. But would I have rebuilt? Eventually. He moved closer. You didn't need saving, Jasmine. You needed time, and resources, and someone to move the obstacles you couldn't reach. You moved more than obstacles. You moved mountains. Because you were worth it. The simplicity of that statement, the certainty, still caught me off guard. I never thanked you properly, I said. Ada, you don't need to. Yes, I do. I turned to face him fully. That night at the diner, you could have walked away, could have decided my humiliation wasn't your problem, but you didn't, and I need you to know that matters. His hand found mine. You saved yourself. I just watched you do it. We saved each other, I corrected, because that was the truth. He'd given me resources and protection. I'd given him purpose and perspective. We'd rebuilt each other in the process. What are you thinking? Min-jun asked. That we should expand Porter's, open 5 more locations, create a franchise model that prioritizes workers. He smiled. Ambitious. I learned from the best. And expensive. You're a billionaire. You can afford it. This is your empire, not mine. Our empire, I said, if you want it to be. Something shifted in his expression. Vulnerability, hope, things he rarely showed. Yes, he said simply. I want that. I kissed him, soft, certain, tasting like wine and promises. Below us, the city continued. People working late, people heading home, people building their own stories, fighting their own battles. And somewhere out there, someone was being humiliated, dismissed, told they didn't matter. I couldn't save everyone, but I could build something that proved dignity was worth fighting for. Come on, I said, pulling Min-jun toward the door. We have work to do. Now? It's midnight. Empire building doesn't have office hours. He laughed, genuine, warm, the sound I'd learned to treasure. We descended together. Partners, equals, people who'd found each other in the aftermath of cruelty and decided to build something better. 3 weeks later, I returned to the spot where it all started. The old diner building was gone completely, replaced by the boutique I'd never visit. But I stood there anyway. On the exact street corner, where I'd walked out that night, fired, bleeding, broken. Where a stranger in a gray suit had handed me a handkerchief and said 4 words that changed everything. I remember faces. My phone buzzed. Min-jun. Where are you? Visiting a memory. Be home soon. Our home or your home? I smiled. We'd been dancing around that question for weeks. Ours, I typed. Definitely ours. I took one last look at the corner, at the ghost of who I'd been. Then I walked away. Not running, not hiding, walking toward everything I'd built from the ashes of humiliation. Toward a life where dignity wasn't negotiable. Toward a future I'd earned. Yet the city swallowed me in its lights and noise and possibility, and I'd never felt more powerful, because they'd tried to teach me my place. Instead, I'd learned my worth, and that made all the difference. 6 months later, Porter's expands to 7 locations. Employee-owned model featured in Harvard Business Review. 1 year later, Min-jun proposes on the same rooftop where we first admitted we were building something together. I say yes before he finishes asking. 2 years later, I testify before Congress about workplace dignity legislation. Tyler Chen sits in the audience. We nod to each other, not friends, but no longer enemies. 5 years later. Our daughter is born. We name her Grace, for what we learned to give each other. The story could end here, but it doesn't, because every day, and someone new walks into Porter's, exhausted, defeated, certain the world has decided their worth, and every day we prove them wrong. That's not revenge, that's revolution. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that the man in the gray suit wasn't just watching. He was counting every insult, every laugh, every second she spent on her knees. And when the reckoning came, it didn't announce itself. It simply corrected the imbalance. Because some debts aren't paid in apologies. They're paid in empires rebuilt and lives reclaimed. Justice doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be inevitable. And love? Love is what happens when two people decide that protecting each other's dignity matters more than protecting their own pride. This is Jasmine and Min-jun's story, but it's also yours. Every time you've been dismissed, every time you've survived, every time you chose to rebuild instead of retreat, that's the power they can never take from you. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so powerful that their opinions become irrelevant. If this story reminded you that your worth was never up for debate, if you've ever rebuilt yourself from humiliation and came back stronger, subscribe right now. Because somewhere, someone just like Jasmine is watching this, needing to know they're not alone, needing to see that survival can become success, that pain can become power. Your one click might be the sign they've been waiting for. It might be the reminder that dignity isn't given, it's chosen every single day. Subscribe and let's keep choosing it together. Because their cruelty tried to write your ending, but you get to write your beginning, again and again, until the story finally belongs to you.